everybody, welcome to and read another chapter. So this video, we're wrapping up our year 2021. I keep wanting to say 2022 just because of all the prep I've been doing, but we're wrapping up year 2021, and I'm going to be sharing with you just how I did on the two videos that I made, the books that I wanted to read in 2021 and the classics I wanted to read in 2021. So let's get started. The first thing I have to note is that I learned something about me this year. Classics are very hard for me. I enjoy them, but they're not something that I can do 21 books of in a year. I need time to really process and go through the process of reading a classic. Jane Austen is very simple and easier for me to pick up and read, but when I'm dealing with new authors such as Thomas Hardy or even Dickens, I find that I do a lot better with watching the movie first and getting to know the characters, not necessarily the story, but just getting to see all of the characters and their getting all of that centered in my head before I get into classics, because classics tend to be very deep in words. There's a lot of descriptions, there is a lot of character building and things like that. So I've learned that about me, which means if there isn't a movie to see or anything like that, I just need a little bit more time to kind of figure it all out. So I learned that 21 classics is way too many classics for me in a single year. And with that, pretty much out of my classics here, I have read 5 classics out of the 21. So that is a big disappointment for me. The ones that I read was Father and Sons by Ivan Turgenev, I think it's Turgenev. And I really did enjoy that. There is a lot of character between the father and the son that was just really interesting to me. And then this other character that kind of sets a tone for the book that puts father and son at odds with each other. And it just made me think so much of a lot of the realities that parents and children face today. Like, there is nothing new under the sun, and it was just really interesting to see just that dynamic of it. Another book that I just finished, and that wrap-up video has not been posted yet, but I did finish Frankenstein, and it feels weird to say I enjoyed that book. Like, should you be enjoying Frankenstein? Like, it is a depressing story. But I learned a lot from it, and I really, especially in our day and age of so much AI, artificial intelligence, and the push for that, it really was interesting to see Frankenstein and then kind of make comparisons between what we're trying to do today with this and what somebody had already accomplished and the fallout of that. And just like what humanity, the essence of it. So I really liked that, and I'll give you more thoughts on that, but that is kind of like the condensed small review of Frankenstein, and I did enjoy that. I read The Obsession of Victoria Grayson by Grace Livingston Hill, not a necessarily like well-known classic like Frankenstein and Father and Sons and Silas Marner and some of the other ones that I had on here, but it is a classic in the sense that it was written in the 1920s, I believe, maybe even earlier. And it's a beautiful story of a Christian woman who basically starts taking under her wing all these outcast boys that are considered too much of a troublemaker, like beyond help and everything, and she just decides to take them under her wing, listen to them, befriend them, and it all happens when her nephew comes to live with her after losing his parents. And she just is a fun character, and these boys, really come to respect her. And it's this beautiful story. I really love that. There is another story of Grace Livingston Hill that I really love, and that's Found Treasure. It's not so much like a romance. She wrote a ton of dime novel romances, Christian dime novel romance, usually with a poor rags to riches stories, Christianized. She wrote a lot of that, and you read one, you read them all. But she had some really gold nuggets, and Obsession of Victoria Grayson is one of them, and Found Treasure is definitely my other favorite. I read The Pearl by Steinbeck. What is his first name? I read a Steinbeck, and I did not like this book. My husband talked about having to read it in high school, and I was talking to him, and I'm like, this is ridiculous. And I was telling him why, some of the things I really didn't like about it, and I'm like, you read it, so I can talk about it, right? Yeah, he didn't remember any of this, and he's like, I wonder why we were, told to read this in a Christian high school. And, it really is just up to what is considered good literature and what you're going to make with that as a professor, as a teacher, and what you're trying to use that for. But yeah, no, I didn't like that book at all. And then the last one was The Blue Castle. Again, that also has not been filmed as a reading wrap-up. But I loved this book so much as a teen. I remember rereading it. But as an adult and rereading it, I was like, I only remember the last, quarter of this book. Almost all of this book, I don't even remember. I just remember her finding out that she was going to die after living a horrible beginning of her life, and you kind of know this at the beginning. And then I remember the end, what she ends up, the decision she makes based on this, and having to want to live her life. But that in between of getting to that point and what happens in the middle of that point of after she's learned and has kind of broken ties with her family, there's like a whole section in there I didn't even remember. And then just some of the other things that came up, I'm like, I don't remember this at all. And it really, the review I ended up giving it was just a disappointment within myself. I thought there was more of the Harvester aspect to it, by the Harvester. I really thought it had more of that, but it didn't. And it was just kind of, It was kind of a letdown. So it had a lower rating for me than what I even remember. So that was the classics that I read out of the ones that I had pulled aside that I wanted to do. Dracula was one. I wanted to get to that in October, and I did not get to that. Silas Marner. I love Silas Marner. Now I'm afraid to read it because of the disappointment with The Blue Castle. But Silas Marner is a beautiful story about somebody that was wrongfully accused and how he lives his life and how he takes somebody under his wing. And I really wanted to get to that. I really wanted to get to Emily of New Moon. Anne's House of Dreams is still sitting there waiting for me to finish. I never did my Anne in October. It's been a hard year, you all. Ooh, it's been a hard year. I have Mother. I have Mother Carries Chickens. North and South. Stepping Heavenward. Maggie McIntosh. Now, I actually am about halfway through with that book. That book is written by Elizabeth Janet Gray, who wrote Adam of the Road, and so that one is kind of well known for its Newbery, or is it a Puffin Classic? Ugh. I think it's a Newbery, but it's also well known in the homeschool community, and as a homeschool mom, so she wrote Maggie McIntosh, and it's about this girl who basically gets to North Carolina at the beginning of the America being built, and just kind of her whimsicalness of wanting to live a better life and things like that. And that's really interesting, but it definitely is a slower paced book. I also have Young Walter Scott, about Sir Walter Scott, also written by Elizabeth Janet Gray. I have Laddie, a true blue story written by Eleanor Stratton Porton, never got to. Robin by gal that wrote Secret Garden and Little Princess. That girl. I had that one I never got to. Like, I'm looking at this, I'm like, oh, there's so many I wanted to. 12 Years a Slave. I did start that one. That one was really hard for me to get into. It's a diary, so it's told in first person. And I'm really looking forward to that, but I do need to kind of get into it. Jane of Lantern Hill. Never got to that one either. Couple other ones. There was a lot on here of Ellen Montgomery that I wanted to get to. Magic for Marigold, A Tangled Web, Mistress Pat, Pat the Silverbrush, and then those were all Ellen Montgomery's. And then the last three, so there was actually more than 21, but I don't really count all the Ellen Montgomerys, I'll be honest. Those were just kind of like bonus ones. But the other three that I really wanted to do this year was Anna Karenina, Dr. Zhivago, and The Time Machine. And I did not get to that. I mean, Anna Karenina is going to take me a while to get through, and I really should start kind of figuring out how I want to work on that. But oh well. So that's the stats for this. Now, at the beginning of 2021, I had a whole stack of books that I was showing that I really wanted to kind of basically read and decide if I wanted to keep them or not. And there was like a nonfiction and then a fiction. And so the nonfiction ones were Becoming Michelle Obama, and I did read that one. I learned later she had a ghostwriter, and I think it comes into play a little bit more with a perspective change within the book. Like, it's all told from Michelle Obama's perspective, but I thought that within her like president's years, like, you could definitely hear the shift of voice in it, and it just wasn't, I don't know, it was fascinating, but it wasn't fascinating. I have a hard time putting that one into words. White Guilt is another one that I had really wanted to read, and I never got to it. Prudence Crandall by Elizabeth Yates. I'm just going to set that one aside and just not get to that. The Story of Liberty by Charles Coffin. I do want to read this. I think this would be very helpful in our homeschool to really just kind of see, because it's told more from like a church perspective, and so I thought that would be really interesting. The 4-Hour Work Week. This was one that I had really wanted to get to, especially after my mom was here and listening to it, and I never got to that. Free to Focus and Money Making Mom, I have DNF'd and have since just gotten rid of it. It's just not the kind of book that I need right now. And then I have Wives as a Signer, which I had wanted to read before my daughter had read it as an assigned reading for her homeschool year, and it just never happened. So now moving on to the fiction books, there is a ton here. Oh, there was also Real Artists Don't Starve by Jeff Goins, and I got rid of that. Not a Fan by Kyle Idleman, I believe. I have not gotten rid of that, but I just never got to it. And then Fantasy, the Romanoff Legacy, I did read, and that was actually a really interesting story. I think the thing that really irritated me about that book was that I felt like the author just took a whole bunch of claims. Well, this is what they said, but there wasn't really dived into deeply as to the claims. So at the end, I'm still kind of questioning, like, was this woman Anastasia? I don't think she was. But there was so much confusion on the facts that she was presenting that I have no idea what it almost is like the author wanted to present the facts but wanted us to think that she really was. And to me, that kind of defeated the point of how this woman got away with pretending to be Anastasia. Guys, I'm having some really bad hair issues, so if I'm constantly adjusting it, it's because it's driving me insane. And of course, static electricity. Oh well. So anyway, it was really interesting. I learned a lot about the Romanovs that I didn't know, and a lot about the people that kind of came in and wanted like a piece of everything. I learned more about that, but I don't know. Okay, so the other books that I wanted to read was The Impossible Knife by the author that wrote Chains and Forge and Fever. Halse. It's something Halse. I'll put it right here. And that one is about this daughter that's kind of dealing with her father's depression. And I thought that would be a really interesting one. It is full of language. And it was interesting to kind of see that perspective. But I don't think it was as good as I was hoping it would be. I didn't think it was going to be a great read, but there was a piece of me that really wanted somebody to do this well. And I don't think they did that well. A Girl You Left Behind. This was a dual timeline written by Jojo Moyes. And I liked the World War II aspect. Did not like at all our present day perspective. Did not like that. The Great Alone by Kirsten Hanna. I still have that one. I still have that one. And to be honest, I have put that in. Okay, I'm not going to read that one. I know what it's about, and I know it's going to be a hard read. And that one is one that I think might hit a little too close to home. But, so I keep getting rid of it, and then I'm like, you know what? I know I'm going to like it. I know I am. It's just going to be a hard read. And this year, I've come to the conclusion, after pulling it out of the get rid of box for the last time, I'm like, you know what? It boils down to this year wasn't the year to read that. But I do want to read that. It was not the year for it this year. And then The Kingmaker's Daughter, which would have been my first Philippa Gregory. I do want to try one, but I'm decided that I'm not going to try to push myself with Philippa Gregory right now. At some point I would like to, but I'm not going to push it right now. And I kind of feel just a little bit about that. You know, there's just that little bit of you that's like, everybody likes her. I will probably like her too. I should just sit down and read it. But I really don't want to right now. So I've gotten rid of that, and I feel okay with this. Because I see her all the time at thrift stores, and I'll just pick it up when I'm ready. Pillars of the Earth by Ken Follett. Yeah, I have heard some warnings about that book, and I've just decided, again, now is not the time for me to read it. So I've gotten rid of that, and I'm okay with this. Marilla basically it's the story of Marilla Cuthbert, and I really did enjoy that. Did not like how they ended it. I think there would have been a beautiful ending. Like, I know how it should have ended. I'm just like, author, you could have had an amazing ending. But you didn't. You could have had such a strong, like, hopeful ending. And you didn't. And that perturbed me. So, I think I ended up, like, knocking a 1.5 because of that. I was so mad. But I did enjoy it. We Were the Lucky Ones. I tried this. I got rid of it. I got it back to try again, and a friend texted me and said, you know what, you know why you got rid of this, right? And she told me why, and I was like, oh, that's right. I don't want to read this, and so I've gotten rid of that. Salt to the Sea by Rita Sepetys. Why do I have such trouble with that one? I still have not read that. And that actually perturbs me. It's right there. I can see it. And I have been looking at it. And it's not done. And it needs to happen. So I think for 2023, like, that's going to be up on the top to get it done. All the Light We Cannot See, which was supposed to be my book for November. Still have not gotten that one done. The Martian. I started it. I did not get into the science of it, and then the language, and I was just done. I was done. It was a DNF, and I've put it. I'm not really. Everybody's like, it was so fascinating how he created, and I'm like, I'm just not interested in this. I'm not into the science. Whatever. So I ended up getting rid of it. I had 2 Julie Clausen books. Something on Cornwall and something about the bridge. Don't remember the titles. I'll put them right there. And I read both of those. Julie Clausen was one of my favorite Christian authors when I exclusively and only read Christian fiction. She was my top one because the first one I ever read, which was Lady of Milkweed Manor, had such a Gaskell Austen feel to it, but it was about a girl that got pregnant before she was married and just the consequences of it. And I really appreciated the Christian message within the pages that was very subtle. It wasn't overt, but it was beautiful and it was well done. And I read a lot of her books that kind of have a similar thing where you just have a girl that is flawed and you just see the beauty of what Christ has done, and it was wonderful. These last 2, you still have that aspect of a flawed character, but I do see more of like the romance coming into it that I just don't remember as much. And it kind of gotten to the point where I almost can predict like how she's going to write and what she's going to write, just because she tends to keep to that. So I don't know. I don't think I enjoyed it as much as Julie Clausen's earliest works. But I there's another one she just came out, and I think that something of Swanson or something like that. I think the Abbey, something Abbey, Swanson, something. I think I would really enjoy that, so I might try that one again. In the Shadow of Croft Towers was another one, and I got rid of that. I just decided I don't really want to read that right now. With this pledge, this one is Civil War, and it was also well done. I think I gave it 4 stars, and I've been very critical of Christian fiction, so that is high praise indeed. And it has it has a slower moving storyline, so it takes a little bit, but there was a lot of historical information that was well put into it. It wasn't an info dump. It wasn't too heavy. And I thought that was really well done. And it did a good job at kind of creating our character. And you kind of see her work through things and blossom in things, as well as our main male character, because it is a Christian historical romance. And so I really appreciated that. I thought that was well done. The Princess by Laurie Wick, one of my favorites, and actually I would read this may be a TMI thing, but I would actually read this most often when I was on my period, because there is a scene in that book and it's hysterical and I could relate to it. So I actually pulled it out last night to read because I was like, I can't read it now unless the time is just right, if you know what I mean. So it will happen this month, and it's going to be fun, and it's going to be a blast, and it's a quick and easy read. And that's, one of Laurie Wick's older books. And so it's just fun, and it's fun in the sense of this romance because it is about a girl that gets married to a prince, and just, it's kind of a love comes softly, like how does the love blossom and grow while he's still grieving for his wife, and she's still trying to figure out this role as a princess. So it's really fun. It's kind of hard life, and just it's a thrill. I like that one, so I'm looking forward to reading that. So that's more of a reread for me. Straight Down a Crooked Lane. Wow, this one was so good. I read Francina Arnold's Not My Will last year and loved it. And this one is another one that I had heard about that she wrote, and I read it, and again, I love it. It is about impetuous children that basically get married against their parents' wishes, and just how hard these children have to live now because their parents had some valid reasons on why they shouldn't be getting married at that time. And they basically said, you're not going to tell us what to do. We're going to get married anyway. And it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy. And it was a very good story. I Will Repay, which is another book in the Scarlet Pimpernel series. And I love Scarlet Pimpernel series. The reason I was frustrated by this one, was two reasons. One, we really didn't get to see a lot of the Scarlet Pimpernel. It was kind of more about this other guy rescuing this girl who's kind of playing him because he had a forced duel with her brother. Anyway, it's, you know, it's a classic. And we just didn't get to see a lot of Percy, and I love Percy. The first Scarlet Pimpernel was told from Lady Marguerite point of view, and so I don't know, I just feel like there was a little more humor in there. And in I Will Repay, the humor was a little bit less. I had a stinking abridged copy because I Will Repay is actually a very hard Scarlet Pimpernel to find. I've been searching on eBay. I've been trying to find it unabridged. Not having a whole lot of success as of now. I'm not even looking anymore because I'm about ready to go into No by Year. But yeah, so it was not as great as the Scarlet Pimpernel. So, but I did read it and it was okay. Kingdom of the Blind, which is part of the Louise Penny's Inspector Gamache series. I did read Still Life, which was the first one. And I enjoyed it, but I didn't enjoy it as much as I thought I would. And so I've just decided that I don't want to read the rest. And so I got rid of the Kingdom of the Blind, but I did read Still Life. Faith and Treason, which is about the gunpowder plot, Guy Fawkes. And I've picked that up once or twice, and I can't tell if it is nonfiction or not. I don't think it is, but I think it's told in a nonfiction kind of way. And so I've kind of been hesitant about that. So I think if I don't read that this year, I think I'm just going to get rid of it. A Study in Charlotte was a DNF. It is basically a school prep school, and you've got those awful things that they do to like get in. What is it called? Frat parties or something like that. And I had no desire. There was a lot of language, and I was like, you know what? I'm not gonna force myself through this. I'm disappointed in this one, and whatever redemptive could be part of this story, it's been lost within the first 2 chapters of it. So I didn't finish it. I got rid of it. And I think that's all. I think that was the list. At least that's all that I wrote down. So I think insofar as what I have read is pretty good, because comparing what I have not read to what I've gotten rid of, I would say it's about half and half of, you know, I got rid of Pillars of the Earth. Well, let's just say Have the Great Alone to read, Salt of the Sea, All the Light We Cannot See, The Princess, Faith and Treason, Wives of the Signers, The Story of Liberty, White Guilt, Not a Fan. So 9 books out of all of that I did not get to. And that's not even including the classics, but I think that's pretty darn good, because that was a stack. So I feel pretty good about it. I feel like I made good I did well. We're gonna leave it at that. I did well. So how about you? Are you guys making any, we need to read these in 2022 or make a decision on that? I think that's called Read or Rid. There's very little there's very little here that I haven't read that I'm willing to get rid of. So yeah, we're just gonna leave it. Insofar as Read Your Bookshelf challenge that I was doing with Chantal this year, I think it was about July, maybe August. I think it was July or August when I was doing really good until I hit there, and then I just couldn't pick myself back up. And that's about when this year kind of got a little bit hard and difficult. So I'm not going to beat myself up too much. I do have my December read pulled out, so I would do that and finish this year strong. So until next time, have another cup of coffee and read another chapter. Bye.